What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Ninth Doctor Christopher Ecclestone story, Father's Day. This is, of course, episode 8 from series 1 of the Revival. Who gets confusing now, where we've now got season 1, we've got classic season 1, we've got series 1 of the new series, and then we've got back to season 1 again for Ncuti Gatwa's first season. But this is series 1 of the Revival, that's what I'm calling it. Episode 8, Father's Day. It is, by all accounts, kind of a filler episode, but it is also quite an important episode, and I've always quite enjoyed this one. As the filler episodes go, this is one of the better ones, especially in series 1. Just in general, it is a very good episode, so let's get into it, starting off with the cast. Christopher Ecclestone as the Ninth Doctor. He is very good in this one. The Doctor isn't a massively present character in this episode, to be honest. I wouldn't say this is a Doctor Light story, in saying, like, Love and Monsters and Blink, those are Dr. Light stories. This isn't a Dr. Light story like that, but it is definitely, I'd say, the story in series 1 that the Doctor is in the least. Maybe with Rose, actually, because to be honest, the episode Rose, the Doctor's not in a whole lot, especially at the beginning, but I'd say this is one of the more Dr. Light episodes in this series. So for what Christopher Ecclestone does in this episode, he's very good. His, the emotions that he goes through of being annoyed at Rose, being still, kind of being forgiving of her as well, but still being annoyed, you can tell, and trying to save Pete and all that sort of stuff. It's a really great performance by Christopher Ecclestone. Billie Piper as Rose Tyler. Rose really is the central point of this story, along with Pete. We see more Rose than we do the Doctor, and I reckon this is Billie Piper's best performance so far. The emotions that she has in this story, it's just a flurry of emotions, from, going back in time to seeing when her dad died, to then saving him, to being happy that she saved him, but then being sad when she realizes that, everything else that's happened because of her saving him, and then in the end, what he has to do to then make things back to normal again. Just the whole thing is amazing. Billie Piper is so good in this story. I will also mention Sean Dingwall as Pete Tyler Marine. Of course, we've got like Jackie in there as well, but I'm going to talk about Pete because this is his first appearance in the show, and we don't see him again until the Cyberman two-parter in Series 2, and that is a different version of Pete. But yeah, I think Sean Dingwall does a very good job of playing this character. I really like Pete. I've always quite liked him. We see a decent amount of him, Series 1 here, in Series 2, and then we see him again in Series 4. I believe, do we see him in, or maybe we don't see him in Series 4, actually. I can't actually remember. Do we? We might not actually. I honestly don't remember. Maybe we don't see him again in Series 4. But yeah, for the amount of times we do see Pete, he's very good, and he's really good here as well. Plays the part perfectly. All right, so let's get on to some parts about this story. Rose goes back in time to save her dad. So originally, Rose just says, can we go back, see my dad in his last moments? The Doctor's like, yep, we'll go and do it. We just can't interfere. And the episode starts, they go back. The Doctor says, you can, once he gets here, he's like, go up to him, say your goodbyes or whatever you want to say, and then he'll die. But she doesn't do it quick enough the first time round, and she's like, can we do it again? So then they go back a second time, and but the old versions of the Doctor and Rose are still there. So now they have to make sure they don't interfere with the old versions of themselves. But also, she still wants to go and say goodbye to her dad, but she ends up running out, saving her dad from the car that was going to hit him, and in turn screwing up time. And it's a really awesome concept that we haven't really seen much of other than in this episode. Screwing with time in this sort of way, but not in this exact way anyway, and I just think it's a really cool concept. The TARDIS is now just an empty box. Now, I don't really understand how this works. I know that Rose saving her dad screws up time. It completely screws up time. Why that means the TARDIS is now empty, I don't think really makes sense, personally, to me. I mean, I guess maybe it's the fact that, what ends up happening is the Doctor ends up dying, spoilers for later on, and then Pete has to, end up dying, and we'll get to that later, but end up dying to then get time back to how it should be again, so then the Doctor's back alive. So maybe the TARDIS isn't there because the Doctor's gone, so the Doctor doesn't exist because he dies later. I don't know. It's a bit confusing. I think it's mostly there just as a thing to be like, right, our characters can't get out of this one by just flying off in the TARDIS. So for that alone, I will let it off. Pete and Jackie don't have a good relationship. So this is a really nice thread as well, or a really sad thread, but nice for storytelling in a storytelling way. Because Rose always assumed with her conversations with her mum that her and her dad had, her mum and her dad had a good relationship, but well, at least, well, no, this is in a parallel universe. We're not there yet. In this real universe, it turns out they don't really have a very good relationship. And yeah, it's heartbreaking for Rose. It's really heartbreaking for her because she did not know this was what her parents were like. So yeah, I really like that as a detail as well. The Reapers are there to sterilize the wound. Now, we've got to talk about the Reapers because I think this is the main part that people have an issue with in this story. They are basically just these kind of dragon-like creatures that once time has been altered in a way that it's not supposed to have been altered. The Reapers come down, they try and sterilize the wound by, I don't know, killing everyone around it. It doesn't really make sense. So the issues that people have with this is one, that it just doesn't really make sense. How are they sterilizing the wound by just killing everyone? I don't really know how that works. I know that they're kind of killing all the people that are within this certain radius. How that fixes it, I don't really know, but apparently it does. But then also the big issue that people have is that why do the Reapers never show up again? Because stuff like this does happen again. Not quite in this exact same way, but similar sort of stuff happens where, things are being shifted in a way that they weren't supposed to be with time. So why do the Reapers never rock up again? It is a little bit of a not a loophole, a plot hole, I guess, that these things come out to fix time when time's been disturbed, but we never see them again. The Doctor's sweet talk with the bride and groom. I love that moment. I mean, the bride and groom in this story, because obviously they're going to a wedding, that's when all this happens in a church. And, the bride and groom are like, what are we going to do? Are we just all going to die? And the Doctor, goes through and talks to them. They give him their life story of how they met and all that sort of stuff. And the Doctor just has this really lovely moment where he's like, I could never have a life like you. Yes, I will try and keep you safe. And it's just a beautiful moment in this story. Rose making up stories about her dad and him finding out. So yeah, Pete asks Rose, because once he finds out that Rose is actually his daughter, but from the future, he's like, how good am I? What sort of a dad am I? And Rose gives all these stories about picnics and how great he was and how, he did this and did that, picked her up after school and all this sort of stuff and how awesome he was. And Pete's just like, that's not me. That is not the person I am. And it's the most heartbreaking thing ever. I'm not the sort of person that really gets teary or, really cries with shows and things like that. But this scene, that scene especially, that scene is just emotional. Rose touches the baby version and lets the Reapers in. So yeah, the whole thing about don't touch the baby from the Doctor, Rose ends up touching the baby mainly because Pete gives her the baby. So it's kind of his fault in a way as well. But they should have also told him, hey, don't let Rose touch the baby. But she does. That lets the Reapers in. The Doctor tries defending everyone. The Reapers then kill the Doctor. And now it's basically like, well, all hope is lost. And yeah, it is very sad, and it's like, what are we going to do? But I think most people in that moment, and Pete realizes it as well, they know what has to happen here. Pete realizes he has to die for everything to return to normal. So he figures it out. He figures out that Rose is his daughter. He figures out that Rose and the Doctor have come from the future. And then he keeps seeing the car that almost hit him outside in a kind of never-ending loop. He puts it together and he's like, I know what's going on. The car that killed me, it's out there. I was supposed to die to that car, wasn't I? You saved me. That's screwed with time. I now need to go and get hit by this car for time to go back to normal. And it is the most heartbreaking thing ever. I mean, it's kind of saw it coming. I love how he was like, the Doctor knew all along that this was what had to happen, but he was trying to figure out some way of getting this through without him dying. But unfortunately, it's not worked out that way. The Doctor's gone. This is now the only way. And it is so emotional. It is a really, really sad way for an episode to end. But yeah, it's just so emotional, this episode. So, Father's Day. I really like this episode. It's an episode that I originally thought was, yeah, it was a good episode, but it was nothing special. Every time I watch this, it goes up in my rankings. Is it a bit slow at times? Yes. It is a filler episode, but the emotion, this is one of the most emotional episodes in Doctor Who, and great performances by everyone. Even the guest cast is pretty good as well. But yeah, it's honestly a tearjerker episode, and that's something that I don't get a whole lot. I mean, I do get it a bit with Doctor Who, other things not really, but this is probably the first time in Doctor Who that it is a real tearjerker story for me. So, a rating out of 10 for Father's Day, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, which is higher than I would used to give it. I used to give it maybe like an 8 out of 10. On this rewatch, I could not really find anything wrong with it, apart from the Reapers, they're not coming back again, but that's not really an issue with this story. That's more of an issue later on. And there are a couple of other things here and there, but on the whole, it is such a good episode. It is so emotional. It is fantastic. A 9 out of 10 for Father's Day. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.